What do you get when you cross an AHL roster versus an NHL roster? I don't know, but we're going to talk about it.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we're going to be talking about the second to last preseason game happening tonight in Winnipeg with obviously the Flames and Jets. And, who has, what's at stake here for certain players? Who has the most to lose? And, of course, the injuries that have occurred during the preseason and what can be done to quell this? Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. It is so good to be back every day. I love coming home and jumping on and recapping the day's events and getting to share them all with you guys. So today, obviously, second to last preseason game for the Flames, which is so exciting because obviously regular season hockey is right around the corner. Next week, the Flames face off against the Canucks, and then Saturday night, they play the Philadelphia Flyers at home. But let's take a look at today's, who went to Winnipeg? Who can we expect to see on the ice tonight? And it is a very AHL heavy roster. It very much feels like a make it or break it moment for 90. I'd say 90% of these guys. So in net, you have Dustin Wolf and Devin Cooley. Wolf will be starting the full game. And for defensemen, you have Kevin Ball, Tyson Barrie, Jake Bean, Jared Tenorti, Jonathan Asperot, Hunter Brustowicz, and Daniel Maramonov. Okay, good stuff there. And your forwards, you have Dryden Hunt, Kevin Rooney, Jakob Pelletier, Matt Coronado, Anthony Mantha, Adam Klapka, Sam Morton, Connor Zary, Justin Kirkland, Clark Bishop, Walker Dewar, Cole Schwinn, and Martin Ferk. That is quite the roster, right? That's a mouthful. But I do feel like a lot of these guys are going to be with the Wranglers at the start of the season, as a majority of the NHL roster is not here. So it definitely has that last hoorah sort of feeling to it. And I'm interested to see, is this the game where Pelletier is able to break through and prove that he is able to play at the NHL level? And it's not a matter of, no, maybe it is a matter of if. It stinks so bad. He has had such a bad string of luck, and I hope that it was just a matter of him getting into the rhythm of things, and hopefully that tonight will be a good showing of that, and he won't have to go on waivers. And obviously, we all know that cuts are going to happen. Solyov was placed on waivers yesterday, cleared, reassigned to the AHL. That's good. Good for the Flames, good for the Wranglers. But I do feel like there are going to be teams that are interested in a player like Jakob Pelletier if he were to, go on waivers. But let's take a look here and what seems to be the most realistic lineup, right? We know Hunter Brustowicz is going back to the OHL because he is not AHL eligible yet. Kevin Ball, NHL. And Tyson Barrie, we know that he's going to earn that NHL contract. Same with Jake Bean. He's already an NHL player. Jared Tenorti taking up a spot from someone like Solo or Jeremy Poirier, like Jonathan Asperot, AHL. And Miramonov, I think, is going to be in the AHL, but I hope he does see NHL minutes. For your forwards, you have Dryden Hunt, definitely an in-betweener. Kevin Rooney, I think, starts the season in the NHL. Jakob Pelletier, ask me tomorrow. Matt Coronado, he has made a really good case to stay in with the NHL. Anthony Mantha, we know he's going to be in the NHL. Adam Klapka, more than likely going to be in the NHL. Sam Morton, I think will see NHL time this year. I think that that's going to be a situation where they waive Rooney to send him to the AHL and they call up Sam Morton. I think that that's going to be a situation we do run into this year. Connor Zary, we know the drill there. He's going to be on the NHL roster. Kirkland and Bishop and Ferk were already sent through on waivers and then just called up for the game. So they'll just get, put back down there. Walker Dewar and Cole Schwinn. Walker Dewar should be in the AHL. Cole Schwinn, probably some more time in the AHL as well. But, I mean, all of these guys have something to prove. Whether it's, them being a first-round draft pick, a draft pick that came over in the trade, or a new place, you're playing for a contract, and you just want to make the NHL roster. Like, I really feel like this group is a group, like, regardless of who the players are. I think that the Flames are a great organization in terms of that work ethic and that culture of, you need to work hard. If you want to be here, you need to work hard. If you haven't already, definitely go watch the first episode of The Chase on the Flames YouTube channel. It gives you great insight to how early, like, training camp started and kind of get an inside look as to what some of these conversations look like for these players and coaches. And it's very clear that, like, you earn your spot. You don't just get it handed to you. So definitely check that out because I think, again, offers great insight. But coming up next, we are going to talk about who has the most at stake here. And I think we all know who it is, but we will be right back after this. And I want to talk to you about something we talk about a lot, and that is FanDuel. Hello, NFL fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, put down your wings and check out the latest stats and view live play-by-play so you and so much more on the same page where you can place your bets. So maybe you're placing Cowboys money line. Maybe you are betting on the over for this week 5 game. Who knows? But FanDuel has it. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. I hope you're having a fantastic week. It is already Wednesday. The Flames open their season in a week. Like, I leave for Calgary in 9 days. Like, this is a great time. I love this time of year. But you know who doesn't like this time of year? The in-betweeners. The players in the gray area. The players that have a lot to lose if they don't make this NHL team. And I would say, unfortunately, the player at the top of that list is Jakob Pelletier. We all know that he has had multiple chances. Last year was supposed to be his year, and I will never not think, like, regardless of how his career turns out, I will never not think about what could have been had he not been boarded in the final preseason game that required him to have shoulder surgery and miss essentially the entire season. I think that that was a huge detrimental loss to him and his development. And it stinks. We did get to see Zary and Pospisil up in the NHL because of the vacancy, but it's still like it doesn't cancel out really. At least for me, I don't think I always feel bad when things like that happen. It's not fair. It's not fair, and I think we've all uh, learned that at one point or another. But if Pelletier does not make a solid impression tonight, whether that be scoring, whether it be on the forecheck, whether it be consistent skating and speed, it needs to happen because he has fallen behind in terms of what stood out at camp. I don't necessarily think the Flames should give up on him by any means. Sometimes I do wonder about, a change of scenery, but with it being just a 1-year contract, I think like it is kind of just is what it is. And if they waive him and he doesn't get claimed, that's great. If he starts the season in the NHL and finds his footing, that's even better. I really want to see him do well. And we know that, he's very respected in the locker room. The coaches love him. Players love his good attitude. He lived with Connor Zary, and Jonathan Huberdeau, has really taken him under his wing. And everyone just, boasts about his positive attitude and his infectious personality. And I think all teams need that, but especially a team that is most likely not going to have a really good season. My next player is Kevin Rooney. I think that this may be one of Kevin Rooney's last years in the NHL, and I don't like saying that. Kevin Rooney is a fantastic person. I think he's great, and not just because we grew up in the same area, but he could, this veteran fourth line center, could very well lose his spot to a Sam Morton. Like I mentioned earlier, I do see a world where, something happens and, whether Rooney's on IR or they send him on waivers and they call up Sam Morton. I think that Sam Morton is going to do a great job at the NHL. I think that, it's just a matter of the Flames making room for him because there isn't much room at the moment. And I don't really see the Flames, they have, let's say they have Backlund and Kadri. Those guys are not going anywhere in terms of centers. And then you have, Zary, Sharangovich, Pospisil, whoever else they might throw in there too. And then you'd have that fourth line. And I think that fourth line will belong to Kevin Rooney to start the season. But for how long is essentially up to him. Walker Duehr. Walker. Seems like a very nice guy. However, I think the Walker Duehr experience has ran its course. He had a great season under Sutter. Everyone had a great season under Sutter. And then fell off. I don't think that he necessarily should be on the NHL roster over some of these other players. I think that the AHL is a fine place for him, or you put him on waivers and you see what happens, because he's not necessarily it sounds so bad saying like he's a dime a dozen, but you have a plethora of his skill set in your system. And if he is waived, I mean, I would assume he's finding a new place to live too. I think a team would pick him up in a second. But all of these players do bring something to the roster, whether it is intangibles like veteran leadership or just being a good personality and just a lighthearted person, or you contribute something there. But for me, Kevin Rooney still does bring things to this roster. He is he has that defensive ability and just those natural instincts. And I'm inclined to say Pelletier still, still. He definitely has the skill sets he needs. It's just a matter of getting them up to speed and up to par with his other teammates. Walker Duehr is not an NHL player in this system. I think that there are too many talented players in this organization that deserve that roster spot. And that's, again, just my opinion. I have no ill will towards Walker Duehr. I think he is great. But coming up next, we're going to talk about the variety of injuries, the plethora of injuries that have happened this preseason, and just what we need to do to figure out and not let this happen again, because a lot of players are suffering as well as their teams. And we'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Flames. But before we do that, I do want to talk to you about Gametime. Gametime is your go-to app for tickets for live events. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all of the fluff and only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I used Gametime to go to the Flames game last year when they were on Long Island, and Mackenzie Weegar scored a hat trick. I loved it because I used the all-in pricing option and got to see the view from my seat as well before I hit purchase, and it was the best purchase I could have made, and Gametime made that possible. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure you're following me on Twitter at Jess. Thank goodness the preseason is ending. I cannot get over how long this preseason has felt. I feel like we've been doing this for a month. It's been what, 2-3 weeks? 2? I don't know, but it's been long enough, and a lot has happened. Last night, Macklin Celebrini went into the boards a little funny. He did not skate with the Sharks today in his day-to-day. Patrick Laine, like, I don't know if there is anyone that has as bad string of luck as Patrick Laine. Things have just not been good for him. And that makes me really sad because he seems like a very nice person. And he went to Montreal because he, wanted a fresh start. And that was taken away from him, or at least delayed. A nasty knee-on-knee injury. It was against the Leafs, and that's ridiculous. Obviously, everyone needs a preseason to warm up, to get their feet under them, to get them started, to get them ready for game time action, because how many times have we talked about not being able to replicate like that same level of competitiveness from a game in practice? Like it's impossible. So I think it is very unfortunate that Patrick Laine is going to miss 3 to 4 months with this injury. And their defenseman, Reinbacher, is out the entire season due to another knee injury. I believe it was his knee as well. He needed surgery. And if you're out I was listening to Locked On Canadians this morning, and the timetable for that injury sounds kind of a lot like an ACL. Obviously, you can just speculate. The team didn't come out and say anything for either player, but they just gave updates, or timeframes. But I don't think it's necessary to be doing all of that. You do not need to be throwing dangerous hits. You do not. Why are you trying to go knee on knee? No one wins in that situation. It is very similar to a headbutt. And it got me thinking, like, is the preseason too long? And I know that's a conversation a lot of people are having right now, and it feels like it, but at the same time, it feels like it's not enough, because you have situations like the Flames right now where you want to see more, and you want to see, like, you need more to make a decision, and this is where you're at. But no, I do not think that it is necessary to be doing as many preseason games as possible. I do not think it is necessary to be icing your NHL stars maybe as often. I think, 1 or 2 games at the tail end is fine. I don't know. I just don't think icing an NHL roster against an AHL roster is necessary. I don't. Kind of like tonight, the Jets are have an NHL heavy roster against the Flames, like the Wranglers, basically. And I know accidents can happen at any time in any game, but it just feels silly to make that a potential possibility in tonight, or really the remainder of the preseason. I don't think any of the Flames stars should be on the ice between now and the start of the game against Vancouver next week. But it's going to happen because everyone needs a final look. But I guess a lot of it does come down to player safety too, because we have seen Zajac do some questionable things, and it comes back to the issue of retaliation and what kind of message you're sending. And we talk all the time about how important sending a message to the other team is. If you hurt my player, I'm going to show you what we're made of physically, not by scoring more goals than you, but by physically going after you. And it does feel like, if you break it down like that, it does feel a little barbaric. But I do think that the preseason needs to be reevaluated. I know it was talked about at the Board of Governors meeting, and how, maybe it'll be brought up in the next CBA. It makes me feel really bad, because obviously these players need a preseason. But can we do anything about it? I don't think, I don't think just finding a guy is enough. I don't. I think, unfortunately, and especially in the preseason. Okay, hold on, rewind. A few years ago, they suspended Tom Wilson 20 games for an egregious hit on Sundqvist. Can we have someone set another precedent again to remind these people? Because I feel like player safety is just, they're not even spinning a wheel. They are just pulling numbers out of their behind. And unfortunately, I think that there's some, like, an offender is going to need to be made, set a standard with him. He's going to be made an example of. That's the word I'm looking for. So we just need to be smarter, skate with your head up. I mean, that goes without saying, but also just, this is the preseason. I don't think any of this is necessary. However, I think listening to Locked On Flames and making Locked On Flames part of your day is very necessary. So make sure you are checking out previous episodes, as well as the Pacific Division Roundtable that went live on Monday, where we talk about what's at stake with the San Jose, or Locked On Sharks, Locked On Kraken, as well as Locked On Ducks. And that will do it for me here today. Thank you so much for making the show part of your day. I hope you have a great evening and enjoy the second to last game of the Flames preseason. And I will see you all tomorrow.